A unique portal in your current reality is actively shutting. It won't wait for tomorrow, or even another hour. In this exact second, while you process these words, while a deep, unnamed part of your soul leans in, this portal is wide open, but its time is severely limited. Nothing this specific happens by chance. You stumbled upon this message for a reason. The fact that you are right here, engaging with this exact content at this exact second, is pure data. It serves as a direct alert from your deeper mind, warning you of an imminent shift. You absolutely must stay alert when this happens. You have to stand firmly at this gateway. The threshold has appeared, the portal is clear, and how you direct your focus over the next few minutes might just dictate the entirely new life path you walk down next. Absorb this not as some poetic metaphor or fluffy spiritual concept, but as a practical, quantum reality. Within the architecture of human existence and awareness, there are rare instances where the energetic grid unlocks. These are moments when previously blocked paths open up, and frequencies that were once out of reach suddenly become accessible. In physics, this phenomenon is known as a phase transition. It is the exact split-second water transforms into solid ice, or when a superconductor suddenly transmits electricity with absolutely zero resistance. These shifts aren't slow. They don't build up over weeks. They occur instantly at a precise tipping point, a specific heat, pressure, or vibration, and then the change is absolute. Your mind operates on identical principles. Certain portals in your timeline open and shut at highly specific intervals. The tragedy is that the majority of people are too overwhelmed by the daily grind to notice them. They feel the subtle shift. They intuitively sense the gap opening. Yet, they turn away. They dive back into their routines, promising to focus on it later. By the time later finally rolls around, the opportunity has vanished. The phase transition is over. The energy has settled right back into its previous stagnant state. These individuals end up wasting years, even decades, confused as to why their lives remained identical when they felt so sure a breakthrough was imminent. Today, you refuse to be one of those individuals. Why? Because you are here. A hidden fragment of your awareness caught this frequency and answered the call. A deeper, quantum level of your being, one that processes the world far beyond your logical brain's capacity understood. It recognized this exact moment as the critical juncture, and it guided you straight here. Therefore, here is our game plan. We will decode what this gateway truly represents. We won't treat it as a fleeting emotion or blind hope, but as a definable quantum event with a clear mechanism, a rigid structure, and distinct traits you can easily identify. We will examine both dimensions, your current reality, and the reality waiting for you once you cross over. We will uncover exactly why this opportunity presented itself today, rather than 6 months in the past or future. We will track the journey of an individual who faced this very same gateway, analyzing their actions, their sacrifices, and their ultimate rewards. Together, we will engage in a practical exercise, a genuine crossing technique that will physically recalibrate your nervous system and energy field right now, while the portal remains active. Following that, we will discuss the aftermath. We'll explore what permanently shifts, the new identity you adopt, and the exclusive experiences reserved only for the version of you brave enough to step through. The threshold is cleared. Let us begin. In the realm of quantum mechanics, a phenomenon known as quantum tunneling occurs. It stands as one of the most bizarre and awe-inspiring concepts ever recorded by modern science. The concept is straightforward. In classical physics, the mechanics of our everyday, visible world, moving a particle over an obstacle, requires applying enough energy to push it over the top. You simply need the power to scale the mountain. Without that energy, you are stuck on your side. The wall stands firm. However, in the quantum realm, the rules change entirely. A quantum particle doesn't need to climb over the wall. It can pass straight through it. It manifests on the opposite side without ever scaling the peak, bypassing the classical energy requirements completely. It tunnels through the obstacle as if the wall were a mere illusion. It's as though a hidden layer of existence makes the barrier porous, allowing the particle to exist on one side and instantly materialize on the other. Make no mistake, this isn't just a theory or a philosophical debate. Quantum tunneling is the very engine driving nuclear fusion within our sun. It is the exact same mechanism dictating how the enzymes in your own biological body are functioning at this very second. This exact mechanism is what powers the scanning tunneling microscope, an instrument that grants scientists the profound ability to actually visualize single atoms. This isn't science fiction. It is heavily documented, undeniably real, and continuously occurring at the very bedrock of our physical universe, every single second of the day. But here is the crucial detail regarding this phenomenon that directly impacts you as you stand before this gateway. Tunneling is not a permanent, ongoing state. It requires highly specialized conditions to trigger. A particle's chance of successfully bypassing an obstacle isn't a flat, guaranteed rate. It rises, falls, and eventually hits a climax. Sometimes the odds are incredibly favorable, and other times they drop back to zero, effectively sealing the portal shut. The threshold you are confronting this very second represents exactly this concept, an absolute peak in probability for a profound, structural shift within your own mind. Think of the wall separating your past identity from your future potential. For a long time, that wall has felt like dense concrete, permanent and immovable, making any breakthrough feel completely hopeless. Yet, right now, that exact wall has reached its highest possible state of permeability. Your chances of phasing right through it are vastly superior today than they have been in recent memory, and infinitely stronger than they will be for the foreseeable future. This perfectly explains your presence here, a deeper, quantum aspect of your awareness operating on frequencies your logical brain lacks the vocabulary to articulate. Sensed this massive spike in the probability curve. It spotted the portal and guided you straight to the edge. We no longer need to debate if this portal is authentic or if transformation is achievable. The only question that matters now is, will you take the leap while the odds are entirely in your favor? Will you bypass the wall while the energetic grid supports your movement? Or will you delay until the gateway seals shut, leaving you to spend the next several months agonizing over why that massive breakthrough you anticipated suddenly vanished into thin air? Your time is incredibly limited. This isn't some cheap psychological trick to create fake urgency. This is simply the mechanical reality of human evolution. Consciousness upgrades happen through brief windows and rapid phase transitions, all dictated by their own strict, universal timing. And right this second, the clock is ticking on an open door. If these words are resonating deeply, and you feel an internal pull urging you forward right now, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Doing so ensures you stay connected to this frequency the next time a timeline opens. Now, let's unpack the true meaning of superposition. In the quantum realm, before anyone measures or observes a particle, it exists in a state of superposition. Prior to that observation collapsing the wave function, the particle isn't locked into just one identity. It exists in every single potential state at the exact same time. It embodies every iteration of itself simultaneously. An electron spins upward and downward synchronously. A photon travels through two separate pathways concurrently. Erwin Schrödinger's infamous theoretical cat remains both deceased and breathing. To the rational mind, this is a glaring paradox. It feels entirely detached from your daily routine, your personal struggles, and your immediate, real-world decisions. Yet, it applies flawlessly to your exact situation today. At this very moment, you are existing in a state of superposition. One variation of you boldly marches through this portal. That version embraces the impending shift, prompting the wave function to collapse into a brilliant new reality, manifesting the upgraded life you've been desperately trying to birth. This successful iteration of you is entirely real. It isn't a fantasy or blind optimism. It represents a concrete, fully developed quantum probability floating in the field right now, simply awaiting the decisive action that will anchor it into physical reality. Conversely, Another variation of you refuses to move. This version pauses at the doorway, acknowledges the opportunity, but cowers in fear. This timeline actively chooses the comfortable misery of the past over the intimidating mystery of the future. Make no mistake, this version is equally real, totally accessible, and serves as another highly viable outcome of your current superposition. Currently, both of these destinies carry equal weight. They share space within your energetic field. They are both suspended in time, waiting for your final choice, the ultimate observation that will collapse all other possibilities and dictate the singular reality you will actually inhabit tomorrow. This is the practical, lived experience of superposition, and this brings us to the absolute core of why this moment is critical and why the urgency is so intense. Superposition comes with a strict expiration date. The wave function refuses to pause until you feel ready. The universe does not operate around your personal convenience. The field collapses based on its own unyielding dynamics, its own mathematical rhythm, and its own cosmic timer. If that collapse occurs while you are still passively debating what to do if the portal shuts before you make a conscious move, your reality doesn't just vanish into a void. Instead, it automatically defaults to the path of least resistance. It collapses directly into the heaviest probability dictated by your existing habits, your current energetic state, and your deeply ingrained patterns. Put simply, it drags you straight back into the old version of you. This default mechanism doesn't happen because a better future was unattainable, or because you lacked the strength to make the jump. It happens simply because the energetic framework automatically reverts to its most recognizable pattern when it receives zero deliberate input or conscious direction. This is the exact tragedy that explains why countless individuals feel a massive spiritual opening, only to wake up a few weeks later stuck in the exact same miserable loop. The opportunity wasn't fake. The potential was genuine. The upgraded timeline was completely viable. However, the wave function collapsed without a decisive, intentional crossing. The individual failed to purposefully step through the portal, forcing the quantum field to settle back into its highest probability state, which is always the familiar misery of the past. But that is absolutely not your fate today. You are present. You are completely locked in. A deep, instinctual layer of your being recognizes that this is the crucial, irreplicable juncture where conscious observation is mandatory. You understand that your decisive choice is the crossing. Simply being fiercely present and awake at this specific threshold is the actual quantum trigger that dictates the wave function's collapse. You hold the power of the observer. Your focused attention is the singular force that mandates which potential reality solidifies into physical form. And right now, all of your attention is anchored here, squarely on the gateway. There is a distinct, undeniable physical sensation that accompanies standing on a threshold like this. You've experienced it before, even if you lack the vocabulary to describe it. It's the sensation of being suspended in limbo, no longer attached to your past, yet not entirely grounded in your future. It is a feeling of occupying a liminal zone, a hidden hallway connecting two entirely different rooms, while technically belonging to neither. The ancient Greeks had a precise term for this phenomenon. They called it a kairos moment. This concept stood in stark contrast to Chronos, which represented the standard, linear ticking of a clock. Kairos was entirely different. It was the destined hour, the critical juncture heavily pregnant with potential, the exact split second primed for decisive action, transition, and profound metamorphosis. Kairos wasn't measured in minutes or hours. It was defined by the quality and intensity of the moment. It was the fleeting window when the archer had to loose the arrow, when the vital truth had to be spoken, and when the leap of faith had to be taken. Most importantly, Kairos moments, unlike the endless march of Chronos, refuse to wait for anyone. For an extended period, you have been trapped in the slow, dragging rhythm of Chronos. You've felt the mundane accumulation of days. You've carried the heavy sensation of a massive shift brewing, yet constantly failing to materialize. You felt like you were pacing outside a locked door, never quite finding the handle. That entire grueling period was simply the approach phase, the sluggish journey toward the gateway that occurs within normal, linear time. But recently, the atmosphere shifted violently. You felt it. Perhaps you couldn't articulate it. Or maybe you rationalized it away as daily stress, an emotional slump, or just a heavy season of life. Yet, a deeper part of your soul recognizes that your recent experiences defy normal explanation. This isn't just the mundane passing of time. This is the final, accelerated approach toward the threshold. It is the definitive sprint toward a portal that has loomed larger and larger, until suddenly right now it stands directly in your path. Look at the evidence. Notice the toxic elements rapidly peeling away from your life. Observe how certain relationships are suddenly bathed in harsh clarity, revealing who truly has your back and who is merely playing a role. Acknowledge the deep discomfort you feel within your own skin as your old identity starts to chafe like a heavy winter coat in the dead of summer. Consider the bizarre, profound stillness that occasionally hijacked your mind out of nowhere, making it feel as if the entire planet had momentarily paused to catch its breath. Reflect on how your dreams have mutated. Think about those sudden, alien thoughts that seem downloaded from a source far beyond your logical brain. It is an overwhelming, undeniable knowing that an irrevocable transformation is imminent, has already initiated, and is unfolding this very second, regardless of your perceived readiness. Do not mistake this for a panic attack. This is not mental instability. This is not a symptom to be medicated, suppressed, or explained away by a therapist. This is the physical sensation of approaching the gateway. This is your soul navigating the final liminal corridor. This is the universe actively rewriting its own code to accommodate your impending phase transition. Reality itself is bracing for your arrival, and that arrival is happening now. The Kairos moment has struck. The portal is clear. The doorway is wide open right in front of you, and you possess mere minutes before the relentless ticking of Chronos catches up to this sacred Kairos opening, forcing the gateway to snap shut. Do not mistake this for a motivational speech about someday chasing your dreams. This is not generic advice to eventually improve your habits. This is a cold, calculated breakdown of a literal quantum event taking place inside your neural pathways right now. It is a biological and energetic phenomenon bound by a strict time limit, a precise duration, and a fleeting climax of peak probability. That window of maximum probability is active at this exact second, and once it closes, it will never present itself in this exact configuration ever again. The portal is open. Can you feel the pull? Take a brief pause and scan your own history. Have you ever crossed a threshold where retreat became instantly impossible? A singular moment where your physical body just knew that your entire trajectory had permanently altered? Share that experience in the comments below. The community reading your words might be standing at the exact edge of the precipice you've already conquered. Let's break down exactly what exists on either side of this portal, because blind optimism won't serve you here. We aren't talking about a fuzzy concept of things getting better or a vague wish for a nicer life. You must perceive both dimensions with razor-sharp accuracy, the kind of absolute vision only achieved when you are balancing on the precipice, gazing in both directions simultaneously. Let's look backward first. The reality you currently occupy, the timeline that is rapidly expiring, has actually served a vital function. We must respect it before abandoning it forever. The habits, the narratives, and the energetic loops that scripted this past era of your life were never mistakes. They weren't failures. They were the exact, calculated framework your mind required to navigate your way to this very precipice. Every past iteration of your identity executed its mission perfectly to deliver you right to this door. Therefore, release any guilt or judgment regarding your past. Simply acknowledge its utility and recognize that its contract has officially expired. However, we must be brutally honest about the toxicity of that old environment. Understanding the true agony of the past is the fuel required to make the leap. You are dragging the suffocating weight of an outdated identity, the internal monologue dictating your worth, your limits, and your potential was authored a long time ago, yet it continues to play on an endless loop. You know this deeply. You feel the constant, grinding friction between the person you are evolving into and the character that old script forces you to play. It is utterly exhausting to birth a new reality while lugging around a dead narrative. Your current boundaries exist solely because your operating system was programmed before you possessed the profound wisdom you hold today. Furthermore, the timeline behind you offers the seductive trap of familiarity. We have to call this out, as it is the primary reason the masses freeze at the gateway. Yes, your current life feels restrictive. Yes, it is suffocating, but it is entirely predictable. You know how to survive it. You are intimately acquainted with its unique flavor of misery. A primal, ancient sector of your nervous system will always choose a guaranteed cage over an unpredictable expanse. Do not hate this survival instinct. It is simply trying to shield you. It kept you breathing, but its shift is over. Now, look forward. Do not just process this logically, let it reverberate in your bones. Beyond this threshold lies a timeline that has been eagerly anticipating your arrival. This isn't a daydream. It is a scientifically sound, quantum-validated existence, currently vibrating in superposition, begging for your forward momentum to anchor it into the physical plane. Across this boundary is a version of yourself totally liberated from the old script. You will operate from a baseline of self-worth that aligns seamlessly with your current evolution. No more burning precious stamina, fighting the friction of cognitive dissonance, all that wasted power you previously spent maintaining the illusion of your old self will instantly flood back into your system, ready for you to weaponize and direct. Stepping through this door means you are finally becoming the person you've spent months, maybe years, trying to be. You execute the quantum leap. You command the wave function to collapse into the upgraded framework. You permanently exit the haunting liminal hallway and finally walk into the new room. Understand, this new dimension isn't a flawless utopia devoid of struggle, but it is profoundly authentic. It vibrates with life. You are finally walking the true landscape of your destiny, rather than rotting away in the waiting room of your past. Crossing over signifies true arrival. It doesn't mean your life is completely solved, but it means you are completely aligned. You are finally broadcasting on the exact frequency you've worked so hard to tune into. The doorway bridges these two realities. Its hinges are blown wide open, and your toes are right on the line. Which brings us to the ultimate question. Why now? This is the critical puzzle most people fail to investigate. Why has the universe unlocked this portal today, rather than a year in the past or a decade in the future? What precise mechanical trigger turned this exact second into the definitive launchpad? To understand that, we have to examine the physics behind phase transitions. Consider the physical state of water just before it freezes. Long before the actual transformation is visible to the naked eye, a profound architectural shift is occurring at the microscopic level. The molecules start aligning in entirely new ways. They actively adopt formations that serve as the blueprint for solid ice. Even while the substance appears completely fluid, its internal ecosystem is aggressively gearing up for the metamorphosis. It executes all the heavy lifting behind the scenes, masquerading as the exact same liquid it has always been. Then, the exact microsecond the temperature hits 0 degrees, the absolute tipping point, the change triggers instantly. The entire molecular grid snaps into its new solid state in perfect unison. It isn't a slow fade. It isn't a partial shift. The whole entity evolves simultaneously. Your mind has been executing this exact same hidden preparation. Every single event you've endured over these last few months, the sudden bursts of clarity, the shedding of toxic baggage, the profound inner awakenings, and the painfully obvious display of your outdated habits, all of this was your internal grid reorganizing. You were adopting new behaviors, even as the old programming stubbornly tried to run. This was your invisible, molecular-level groundwork, preparing you for the jump. And in this exact second, you have hit 0 degrees. You are standing dead center on the precipice where the background preparation ends and the real-world manifestation begins. The portal is no longer a distant hope. It is an impending physical reality ready to materialize, provided you consciously step through rather than passively waiting for the universe to choose your fate for you. This perfectly answers the question of why today? It has absolutely nothing to do with external triggers, seasonal changes, or astrological alignments. It is driven purely by the internal climate of your own soul. It is the direct result of the relentless, subconscious labor you've been doing. You were putting in the reps even when you felt entirely stagnant. You were moving forward even on the days when your old trauma felt overwhelmingly dominant. The foundation is set. You are at the absolute brink, and the door is unlatched. However, we must address the most urgent factor of why now with brutal honesty. The closing of this gateway isn't a manipulative scare tactic. It is fundamental physics. Phase transitions cannot be paused. An organism cannot hover at the freezing point for eternity. It must either solidify or melt back into its prior state. The prime window for quantum tunneling hits its absolute climax and then rapidly decays. A sacred kairos opening cannot resist the relentless ticking pressure of Chronos forever. It is a strictly timed sequence, and soon, ordinary reality will resume its mundane march. If these words are reaching you, your probability curve has maxed out. The environment is perfectly calibrated for your escape, and I guarantee it will never align in this exact sequence again. Do not let this induce panic. Let it command your absolute presence. Give this exact second the profound focus it demands. That intense level of focus is the quantum trigger. It is the conscious observation that shatters the superposition and forces the instant upgrade, saving you from slipping back into your outdated identity. You are standing on the edge. The threshold is clear, and your time is running out. To ground this concept, consider the story of a woman we'll call Mara. She once found herself staring down a nearly identical precipice. Mara had devoted years of her life to constructing an existence that checked every single societal box. She secured the prestigious career, the beautiful apartment, the adequate relationships, and the highly predictable schedule. Technically, none of these achievements were wrong. Yet, buried beneath the mountain of comfort and routine, she had completely lost her pulse. She had sacrificed a vibrant, untamed spark of vitality just to build the very life that was supposed to protect it. This loss manifested as a faint, persistent buzzing, a hidden frequency vibrating beneath her mundane daily tasks. It felt like picking up static from a distant radio broadcast. It was strong enough to irritate her, but too distorted to decipher. For years, she gaslit herself into accepting this reality. She convinced her mind that genuine passion was a childish fantasy, that her quiet desperation was simply the cost of adulthood, and that she needed to just shut up and be grateful for her stability. But that internal static refused to fade. It amplified. It wasn't a sudden explosion of chaos, but rather a slow, relentless, agonizing increase in volume. This continued until the breaking point finally arrived. She could recall the exact details of that specific afternoon forever. The exact angle of the sunlight, the chill in the room, and the eerie, deafening silence that preceded the shift. She was sitting at her office desk right in the middle of a mundane Tuesday, executing completely trivial tasks, when the hidden static suddenly crystallized into a singular, piercing note. It was sharp, undeniable, and loud. This wasn't a poetic exaggeration. She physically felt the vibration in her chest. It was a frequency she had forcefully choked down for so long that its sudden release pierced through the ambient noise of her reality like a siren. It felt like the very first moment of genuine clarity she had experienced in a decade. The note didn't speak in words. It communicated through the primal language of the nervous system, transmitting a direct message from the deepest quantum layers of her consciousness, the realms that bypass logic entirely. The message was simply, "Your time is up." She had zero idea what she was supposed to do. She lacked a strategic plan, a vision board, or any clue as to what awaited her on the other side of this invisible doorway. Yet, she possessed a bone-deep certainty that eclipsed any rational analysis. She knew with absolute conviction that she was standing on a precipice, that a massive overhaul was imminent, and that her timeline was completely unlocked. And then, she reacted exactly how the majority of humanity reacts when the universe kicks down the door. She panicked and became hyperproductive. She violently overscheduled her life. She enrolled in evening classes, volunteered for extra projects at work, and aggressively booked social events with acquaintances she barely tolerated. She forcefully packed every waking second with frantic motion, noise, and the distracting illusion of progress. If you had confronted her, she would have aggressively denied running away. But the truth was, facing a gateway you can feel but cannot see is pure, unadulterated terror. The old identity, despite being incredibly heavy, abrasive, and painful, was a known entity. The new reality was a terrifying void. So, she drowned herself in tasks. For a brief period, the portal remained open, as they often do. But eventually, the ringing in her chest began to fade. The signal didn't vanish. She had just successfully piled enough garbage on top of it to muffle the sound. The environment slowly shifted from the high-stakes potential of Kairos right back to the dreary, ticking clock of Chronos. The gateway quietly sealed shut. She was acutely aware of the exact moment it locked. It felt like a physical drop in room temperature, the sharp chill that hits your skin when a massive steel door slams shut behind you. It was a tangible alteration in the atmosphere. To cope, she lied to herself. She rationalized that it was fine, that another opportunity would arise, that she simply wasn't prepared, and that delaying the leap was the most responsible choice. 3 agonizing years went by, 36 months of the signal being barely a whisper, 3 years of maintaining the hollow shell of a successful life, 3 years of robotic routines and passionless relationships, but true awareness never actually leaves you. A portal doesn't permanently disintegrate just because you cowered out the first time. The quantum field possesses a level of patience that, frankly, humans do not deserve. Eventually, the gateway re-emerged. The external triggers were entirely different this time, but the internal resonance was identical. That same sharp vibration struck her chest. That same undeniable conviction that she was back on the precipice flooded her system. But this time, her reaction was entirely different. This wasn't because she had suddenly developed superhero courage over those 3 years. It wasn't because she had done deep inner work or unlocked some profound spiritual secret. She recognized the moment purely because she clearly remembered the agonizing chill of watching the door slam shut the first time. She had endured 3 excruciating years, trapped in her outdated programming. She had suffered through the daily mental exhaustion of living a lie. She had paid the ultimate toll for her hesitation, coughing up her own vital energy to maintain the illusion, and she flat out refused to pay that bill ever again. So, she planted her feet at the doorway. She refused to hide behind productivity. She didn't bury the anxiety under a mountain of tasks. She simply allowed the ringing in her chest to scream at its full volume, clear, demanding, and raw. She permitted herself to fully experience the paralyzing fear of the unknown void ahead, while simultaneously acknowledging the magnetic, seductive pull of the familiar misery behind her. She absorbed the weight of both realities. She took a deep breath, and she stepped over the line. It wasn't a cinematic explosion. She didn't quit her job in a blaze of glory or burn her life to the ground. The actual crossing was a silent, deeply internal recalibration. It was a fundamental shift in how she related to her own soul. It was the sudden, deliberate collapse of her superposition. The old operating system was permanently uninstalled, and the upgraded software immediately booted up. The entire phase transition occurred in the microscopic pause between one heartbeat and the next. Everything changed instantly, even if the external evidence lagged behind. She still had the same career, the exact same apartment, and identical routines, but the energy she brought into those spaces was entirely unrecognizable. The agonizing static in her chest vanished, not because she silenced it, but because she had finally synchronized with its frequency. The agonizing gap between the woman she pretended to be and the woman she truly was violently snapped shut. The friction evaporated. All the precious energy she had squandered maintaining her fake identity surged back into her system like a tidal wave, and operating from that newly unlocked frequency, firmly planted on the other side of the gateway, her external reality began to aggressively restructure itself to match her new vibration. This transformation didn't happen overnight, nor was it effortless. However, the momentum was finally pushing toward absolute alignment instead of aimless drifting. She was actively manifesting a reality that genuinely belonged to her, rather than maintaining a stage set designed to appease everyone else. Mara's journey isn't some rare anomaly. In truth, it is the ultimate human blueprint. It is the classic narrative of a soul hitting a breaking point, sensing an open portal, hesitating, and ultimately deciding to either leap or watch the door slam. What separated her outcome from the tragic majority wasn't superhuman bravery or a lucky break. It was simply awareness. She recognized the gateway for exactly what it was: a timed, quantum event and a fleeting spike in probability. Most importantly, she jumped before feeling perfectly secure. This is the ultimate trap of human transformation. The masses stand paralyzed at the precipice, demanding a guarantee before they move. They want to know the exact destination. They desperately want to feel 100% prepared. They demand that all fear evaporates, and a brightly lit path appears before they even lift a foot. But universal gateways do not function that way. Total clarity only exists on the opposite side of the door. Absolute confidence is earned after the jump, not before it. The portal doesn't unlock because you feel ready. It unlocks strictly because the cosmic clock strikes the hour. The act of jumping is what actually makes you ready. Mara only became equipped for her new life the microsecond she crossed the line. Right now, you are mirroring Mara. You are towing the exact same boundary, staring into the exact same open portal, trapped in the identical state of superposition. One version of you leaps, the other cowers and retreats. Both destinies are entirely viable at this exact moment. Both are desperately waiting for you to collapse the wave function. The issue isn't your readiness, it's your willingness to move. Reflect on your past. When did you feel a gateway lock you out because you stalled too long? Drop that memory in the comments below. Publicly confessing that missed opportunity is, in itself, a powerful form of breaking through a threshold. While this current transmission unlocks the door, the comprehensive roadmap to sealing your new reality is fully detailed in the sealed timeline. This is a definitive quantum manual for rendering your energy field completely immune to toxic, incoherent frequencies. It breaks down the exact 5-step protocol to make your upgrade irreversible, taking you from the initial diagnosis across the precipice, straight into a permanently stabilized frequency that lower energies simply cannot breach. You will find the link waiting for you in the description below. The Threshold Protocol. Now, we are going to execute a real-time protocol together. Do not treat this as a fluffy visualization or a cute manifesting daydream. This is a targeted, mechanical act of observation designed to forcefully collapse your current superposition. It will trigger the phase transition and physically pull you across the threshold you are facing right now, while the probability is maxed out and the portal is actively welcoming you. Step 1. The anchor. Settle into a posture that is comfortable but highly alert. Do not slouch or relax to the point of sleepiness. This isn't a passive meditation. It is an active crossing. You must remain fiercely present inside your physical vessel. Acknowledge your own gravity. Feel the dense, physical mass of your body anchoring you to this specific side of the boundary. Step 2. Acknowledging the old grid. Focus on whatever surface is supporting you, the floor, your chair, the bed. Identify this surface as the foundation of your past self. This is the concrete, predictable bedrock of the identity that has dragged you through this closing chapter of your life. Step 3. Neutral observation. Observe how it feels to stand on this decaying foundation. Do not judge it, and do not panic to escape it just yet. Just analyze the data. What is its texture? How heavy is it? Notice the stagnant atmosphere of this outdated reality. Feel the grinding exhaustion that inevitably comes from wearing a mask that no longer fits. Acknowledge the friction between who you actually are and who your old story claims you are. Let it simply exist for a second. Step 4. Locating the edge. Now comes the quantum mechanic. Shift your total focus to the absolute edge. Do not look at the future yet. Do not visualize the upgraded you. Lock your sights exclusively on the boundary line itself, the razor-thin margin separating the old simulation from the new one. This is the exact coordinate where your past dies and your future breathes. Can you detect it? It usually registers as a tight pressure in the center of your chest, or a sudden static electricity charging your awareness. Step 5. Holding the charge. It is a sensation of something massive hovering just beyond your peripheral vision, lurking right on the absolute boundary of your current reality. It mimics the heavy anticipation right before a locked door suddenly swings inward, or the silent microsecond before a life-altering truth is spoken aloud. That raw sensation, that electric, slightly terrifying, undeniably vibrant charge is the portal. Do not rush it. Hold your position right there on the line. Allow yourself to feel the intense gravity of balancing on a precipice. Experience the seductive gravity of the past dragging at your heels, while simultaneously feeling the intense vacuum of the unknown pulling you forward. Acknowledge the crystalline, undeniably real structure of the gateway hovering right in front of your face. Step 6. The quantum breath. Now, inhale directly through the threshold. Exhale back through it. Force your breath to physically cross the boundary line on every single cycle. Pull air in from the future timeline and push air out into the past timeline. Let your respiration be the very first piece of you to break the barrier. Allow your lungs to flood with the atmosphere of your upgraded reality, even while your physical feet remain temporarily planted in the old one. Analyze the taste of the atmosphere from the other side. For some, it tastes like profound relief, the overwhelming exhale of finally reaching a destination you've been marching toward for years, even when you didn't realize you were walking. For others, it tastes like raw vitality. It is the unmistakable shock of being violently present in a moment that actually matters. It is escaping the monotonous grind of Chronos and standing fully alive inside the sacred strike of Kairos, the destined hour when the arrow must fly. And for many, it tastes like pure terror. If it does, embrace it. Fear at the gateway is never a red light. It is the ultimate green light. It is your biology verifying that the portal is authentic, the jump is real, and the stakes on the other side are incredibly high. Fear is simply your body's confirmation that the door is unlocked. Keep breathing. Step 7. The crossing. We execute this final maneuver together. No one jumps alone. The crossing is always smoother when you know someone else has already made the leap and is standing on the other side, holding their hand out. Now, on your own timeline, during your own breath, within your own sudden strike of readiness, a readiness that only appears during the jump, never before it step across the line. Do not force a cinematic explosion. Do not make a theatrical gesture. Simply grant yourself permission. Offer a profound, internal yes. Allow the wave function to completely collapse into your upgraded operating system. Permit the phase transition to execute. Stop fighting the temperature drop. Let the water instantly solidify into ice. Let the decaying reality dissolve as the new one anchors in. Force the superposition to shatter. Command the old grid to completely release its grip on your energy field. Do not use aggression. You cannot bully your way through a quantum gateway. You must surrender to the crossing. You must become completely porous. Stop building the wall between the person you were yesterday and the titan you are becoming today. Allow the quantum tunneling to occur naturally. Let yourself fully materialize on the other side. Breathe. Step 8. Anchoring the new grid. Feel the foundation under your feet on this new side. Yes, physically, you are in the identical room, inside the same biological vessel, occupying the exact same coordinates. But your core frequency is radically mutated. The internal software has been entirely rewritten. The narrative dictating your existence is fundamentally new. You haven't magically altered the external world yet. Your physical surroundings are still catching up to the shift. But because your internal architecture has recalibrated, because the wave function has officially collapsed, because the phase transition has successfully triggered, you have officially arrived. Breathe it in. Sink deeply into this upgraded frequency. Fully inhabit this new version of yourself that has been desperately waiting in the wings. This new you wasn't hiding in some distant galaxy or 50 years in the future. It was simply hovering inches away, right on the other side of a door you were always staring at. You have successfully crossed. The gateway is locked firmly behind you, and retreat is no longer a mathematical possibility. Now, let's dissect the concrete aftermath of surviving a phase transition like this. We aren't going to use fluffy spiritual jargon. We are going to look at the harsh, functional, lived reality of what actually mutates once you cross the line. The most immediate and profound change is the sudden drop in the cost of living inside your own mind. Back on the old side of the door, running the outdated programming, you were constantly bleeding energy. You were suffering a massive, low-level power drain just trying to maintain the illusion, forcing a connection between the person you truly were and the outdated character you were playing. Every single day, a massive chunk of your life force was devoured by the friction of that lie. You were burning fuel just trying to fit your expanding consciousness into a shrinking, suffocating box. This energy drain wasn't a sudden, dramatic explosion. It was a silent, parasitic leak. It constantly siphoned from the exact same reservoir of energy you desperately needed to be creative, build real connections, and execute your actual life's purpose. The microsecond you cross the threshold, that parasitic leak is terminated. The energy violently rebounds back into your system. It won't hit you like a lightning strike all at once, but reliably, steadily, over the days and weeks following your leap, you will notice a massive surge in your stamina. You will suddenly possess a surplus of raw power to allocate toward the things that genuinely matter, and an expanded capacity to build the life you were actually destined to lead. You will immediately notice a profound depth of presence in your relationships, a massive spike in your creative output, and a sharper, grounded engagement with reality. This isn't because you suddenly downloaded a magical new skill. It's simply because you stopped hemorrhaging power. The exorbitant tax required to fund your obsolete, fake identity has officially been canceled. This is arguably the most critical yet criminally ignored practical shift following a quantum leap. Society is obsessed with discussing what you gain when you level up. Almost no one addresses what you stop losing. Yet, permanently plugging that energetic leak provides an instant, radical transformation that outpaces any new acquisition. It unlocks massive reserves of vitality that were forcefully locked away for years. The second massive alteration is a total reversal of your default momentum. In your previous timeline, your natural drift always pulled you backward. The moment you took your hands off the steering wheel, you slid directly back into your toxic habits, your outdated narrative, and the familiar misery of the past. It was as if a virus was constantly trying to reinstall your old software. You had to fight violently against the tide just to hold your ground. The current was your enemy, but once you breach the gateway, the polarity flips. Your default trajectory now propels you forward. You naturally gravitate toward your upgraded reality and your authentic self. The river is finally flowing at your back. Make no mistake, you still have to steer the ship. You still have to execute the labor. But the fundamental nature of the struggle has mutated. You are no longer desperately swimming upstream to avoid drowning. You are simply navigating a powerful current of expansion. When people talk about finding their flow state after a breakthrough, it isn't mystical nonsense. It is literal physics. The momentum is officially your ultimate ally. The third radical shift is your field of vision. When you were trapped on the wrong side of the door, your future reality was entirely cloaked. It wasn't a fantasy, it was a mathematically valid quantum probability, but the wall blocking it was 100% opaque. You could sense its vibration. Your intuition screamed that the prize was real. Yet, you couldn't map the territory or draft a logical itinerary. You were forced to operate purely on blind trust. However, the second your feet land on the other side, the fog violently dissipates. You won't possess a crystal ball for your entire destiny. This new dimension harbors its own secrets and future portals, but your immediate landscape becomes incredibly sharp. You instantly recognize your available resources. The trajectory of your purpose becomes glaringly obvious. You finally see the exact next move on the chessboard, which is truly the only data you ever require. Remember, absolute clarity is the grand prize for making the jump, never the prerequisite. Demanding a perfect roadmap before you leap is the ultimate illusion of the human ego. The fourth and most paramount transformation, the anchor from which everything else stems, is your core identity. In your outdated timeline, you were perpetually stuck in the phase of becoming. You viewed yourself as a work in progress, an individual endlessly marching toward an elusive finish line. That isn't inherently toxic. It was a mandatory phase of your evolution, and you survived it with honor. But it carries a suffocating psychological burden. The identity of a seeker is incredibly unstable. It is plagued by imposter syndrome, forcing you to constantly ask, am I actually evolving, or am I just playing dress-up? Have I really changed at all? Once you shatter the gateway, that agonizing question vanishes. You are no longer desperately becoming. You are. You embody the upgraded frequency. You haven't morphed into a flawless deity, immune to future struggles or subsequent thresholds. But this specific transition is over. The wave function has definitively collapsed into solid form. Your new identity is rock solid, not a fragile theory. This is the raw sensation of true arrival. It doesn't signal the end of life's friction or the cessation of hard work, but it marks the absolute death of the approach phase. You are no longer chasing the mirage. You are building on solid ground. You are here. You have made it to the other side. However, we must confront a dangerous reality regarding the critical hours and days immediately following your quantum leap. This exact window is the graveyard where the vast majority of people sabotage their breakthrough. They completely forfeit their victory. This failure doesn't happen because the jump was a hallucination or because the phase transition was fake. It happens because your old energetic matrix doesn't instantly vaporize just because you crossed the finish line. It doesn't peacefully surrender. It aggressively persists. Your core operating system has absolutely upgraded, but energetic debris is still lingering. Think of it like the ghostly echoes of deeply ingrained habits that don't vanish instantly just because a new program was installed. In physics, when a superconductor reaches its critical freezing point, it still experiences erratic thermal hiccups before the new state entirely locks in. Or when water turns to ice, microscopic pockets of liquid stubbornly remain while the solid crystal lattice completes its expansion across the entire volume. The quantum leap was completely successful, but the curing process requires time. During this fragile stabilization phase, the immediate hours and days following your jump, the ghosts of your past will undoubtedly flare up. Toxic thoughts will unexpectedly spike. Familiar anxieties will claw at you. Outdated narratives will desperately attempt to reboot themselves. If you aren't anticipating this backlash, it can easily trick you into believing the leap was a complete failure. You might panic, assuming the portal slammed shut and trapped you back in your old misery. You are not trapped. The threshold has been definitively crossed. The wave function has collapsed. The phase shift is real. These resurfacing demons are not proof of failure. They are the literal symptoms of a successful stabilization. They are the final, desperate thermal hiccups of an organism undergoing a violent metamorphosis. They represent the dying gasps of your former self, as the upgraded architecture takes root across every cell of your consciousness. Your mission right now is not to wage war against these echoes. Do not panic. Do not interpret them as a regression. Simply observe them through the lens of a victor who has already secured the high ground. See them for what they truly are: harmless, phantom residue. They are decaying echoes, not your actual reality. You made it over the line. Let the concrete dry. We must also address a highly dangerous temptation that will arise almost immediately, and we need to call it out right now. You will feel a massive compulsion to announce your transformation to the world, to publicly act out your new identity before it is structurally sound. This urge is completely natural. It stems from the intoxicating high of liberation and the desperate human need to share a profound victory. However, this premature announcement is incredibly hazardous. Your upgraded reality is authentic, but it is deeply vulnerable. It is still setting. Parading it around before it solidifies invites catastrophic interference. When you broadcast your shift too early, you allow the toxic skepticism, projections, and insecurities of other people to infect your newly forming energy field. They will introduce noise before your signal is strong enough to drown them out. Keep your mouth shut and let the transformation cure in total silence. Allow your new frequency to harden like steel before you expose it to the corrosive elements of the outside world. This isn't about hiding your light forever. It's about ensuring that when you finally step out, you are standing on impenetrable ground, entirely free from the need for external validation. Your leap requires zero applause to be real. You know what you did. Let your own private knowing be sufficient while the integration finalizes. Now, we must confront the ultimate paralyzing question. This single doubt has sabotaged more breakthroughs than raw fear, confusion, or the seductive comfort of the past combined. It is the primary reason the masses freeze at the finish line and refuse to move. The question is, what if I permanently lose a piece of myself that I can never recover? What if this evolution costs me something incredibly precious? What if my new timeline lacks a beautiful element that my old life possessed? Because let's be honest, even within the suffocating friction and dysfunction of your old reality, there were moments of genuine beauty, value, and comfort. You are terrified that by crossing the line, you are leaving behind fragments you will grieve for the rest of your life. You deserve a brutally honest answer to this, not some toxic positivity or fluffy spiritual reassurance claiming everything will be perfect. Here is the unvarnished truth. Yes, you are going to lose things. Genuine sacrifice is the mandatory toll for every quantum leap. You aren't just shedding toxic baggage and friction. You are also amputating pieces of yourself that carried legitimate value and deep texture. The character you played on the wrong side of the portal was completely real. That version of you survived brutal battles, holds a rich history, and possesses its own unique soul. And when you walk through the fire, that version of you is not allowed to follow. It physically cannot. The physics of a phase transition are absolute. You cannot drag solid ice back into liquid water. It is a genuine, agonizing loss, and it absolutely demands to be grieved. However, you must not grieve before you jump. Grieving beforehand operates as a paralyzing anchor, giving you the perfect excuse to abort the mission. True grieving only begins after the leap. You process the loss only after the cement has started to dry. You wait until you are securely planted on the other side, possessing enough stability to look backward objectively without being magnetically dragged back into the pit. Grieving is an unavoidable phase of the crossing. Feeling profound sadness doesn't mean you made a catastrophic error. It is simply the ultimate proof that your former reality possessed immense depth, that your struggles meant something, and that the past iteration of yourself was entirely real and fiercely alive. Fully leaning into that grief is the highest form of respect you can pay to the warrior you used to be. It allows you to finalize your evolution with absolute integrity, dodging the toxic, fake positivity that demands you pretend your past was entirely worthless. Your past held profound beauty, and the universe is highly efficient. You get to carry the purest elements forward with you, the hard-earned wisdom, the deep capacity for love, the brutal lessons, and the internal expansion. Those do not die at the gateway. They are the exact fuel sources that powered your leap in the first place, and they serve as the foundational bedrock of your upgraded reality. What gets permanently left behind is the suffocating friction, the structural misalignment, the toxic narrative that stunted your growth, and the outdated programming that served your past but is fundamentally useless for your future. The portal acts as a flawless, microscopic filter. It preserves the authentic gold and incinerates everything that no longer serves your expansion. Trust this ruthless filtration process when the heavy waves of grief hit you, and they will, because human evolution is inherently painful, and anything of true value demands a sacrifice. Let them crash over you. Do not resist. Allow the sorrow to honor the reality you left behind, and then let it wash away completely. You are standing on the new timeline. This destination is exactly where you were always meant to arrive. Now, let's peel back the layers and examine the literal quantum mechanics of what you just executed. Because let's be entirely clear, a tangible, physical event just occurred during our shared protocol. During that deliberate crossing, when you forcefully stepped over the line, you triggered a massive structural shift within your own quantum field. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a definable, measurable recalibration of how your nervous system and your energetic grid are actively processing reality. Here is the hard science behind your upgrade. Human consciousness functions as a literal field. I am not using that term in a fluffy, pseudo-spiritual way. I am speaking in strict, physical parameters. It is an active field broadcasting a specific frequency, possessing rigid architecture, physically interacting with surrounding fields, shifting between various states, and actively undergoing phase transitions. Your internal quantum field isn't isolated from the external physical universe. It is deeply entangled. It actively participates, simultaneously manipulating reality while being manipulated by it. When you were paralyzed in the liminal hallway, vibrating between your past and future identities, your field was locked in a state of superposition. Both potential realities were running concurrently. The dying version of you and the emerging version of you occupied the exact same space. This state is psychological torture. Superposition is chaotic and inherently unstable. It holds infinite potential but offers absolutely zero structural security. It is the terrifying chaos of all possible outcomes spinning wildly before a definitive reality locks in. The protocol we just executed together wasn't a cute daydreaming exercise. It was a calculated, forceful act of observation in the purest quantum mechanical sense. You intentionally inserted a conscious, hyper-focused observer directly into the chaos of the superposition, and as the foundational laws of quantum mechanics dictate, the sheer act of observation violently collapses the wave function. Your observation selected one specific timeline and brutally anchored it into physical reality. It immediately terminated the chaotic limbo and forcefully triggered the phase transition into your upgraded state. Do not underestimate what you just accomplished. This is the absolute zenith of human power. The ability to observe and command potential into solid reality is the most profound action a conscious entity can execute. You actively chose which timeline survived the superposition. You weaponized the role of the quantum observer in your own existence. You just pulled the trigger. The observation is complete. The chaotic wave function has shattered. The phase transition is actively rippling through your biology. The upgraded operating system is rapidly overriding your old reality. This is the exact reason the portal appeared today. This is why the timing was so violently urgent. The window of maximum probability for this specific quantum collapse within the unique architecture of your soul peaked at this exact second. You showed up. You executed the observation, and the wave function yielded to your command. Retreat is now a physical impossibility. The door hasn't just locked behind you. The entire structure of the past has collapsed. Once a quantum state is consciously observed and the wave function shatters, the system cannot miraculously revert to chaos. The energetic data of your leap has been permanently encoded into the universal field. The phase transition is an absolute fact. The new framework is fully online. You are standing firmly on the other side. The portal is in your rearview mirror, the battered, exhausted version of you that carried you to the brink. The seeker, the warrior who fought through the approach phase, has officially completed their mission. That past identity successfully navigated the brutal, liminal hallway connecting your history to your destiny. Its mission is officially complete, and it has gracefully dissolved into your upgraded architecture, exactly as the universe intended. You are finally the new iteration. Deep down, you were always this upgraded version. It was the inevitable quantum destination you were magnetically drawn toward, but today, you embody it in the only way that actually counts. In physical reality, you have crossed the line, executed the observation, and forced the chaotic potential to solidify into hard fact. Welcome to the other side. You are not alone here. There is an entire unseen collective of individuals who have stood paralyzed at this exact same precipice. They felt the agonizing pull of their toxic comfort zones. They stared into the terrifying void of the unknown, and they leaped anyway. They boldly walked through the active gateway, rather than waiting for a mythical guarantee that universal portals simply never offer. Today, they are actively thriving in this upgraded timeline, vibrating on this exact same frequency. They intimately understand the profound shock and relief you are experiencing right this second, because they survived the exact same fire. You officially belong to this collective now. You didn't buy a membership or earn a superficial badge. You earned your place by shedding blood in the arena. You made the conscious observation that shattered the superposition. You seized the window while it was open and planted your feet on solid ground. You are currently broadcasting the undeniable frequency of a gate crosser, a radically different vibration from those who merely approach the door, panic, and retreat. This is a massive, tangible distinction. Millions of people squander their entire existence endlessly, walking up to the edge and backing down. They perpetually feel the cosmic windows unlock, swing wide, and slam shut. Over and over again, they stall out. They are trapped in an endless loop of trying to change without ever actually arriving. They pace outside the door but never turn the handle. We do not judge them. The struggle of the approach is valid, and the desire to evolve is a necessary first step. But merely walking toward the battlefield is not the same as winning the war. The rare individuals who actually breach the gateway, who strike while the iron is hot, command the observation, and shatter the wave function operate on an entirely different plane of existence. They possess a radically mutated relationship with fear, potential, and the literal architecture of reality. That is the exact frequency you are broadcasting right now. And here is the incredible secret that every single gate crosser will confirm for you. The next portal will manifest incredibly fast. Once you shatter your first major boundary, the timeline accelerates by definitively proving to your own nervous system that you are an entity who leaps when the window opens. The universe starts offering you more windows. This isn't some mystical reward for good behavior. It is pure mechanics. Your internal frequency has officially synchronized with an environment where obstacles are recognized as launch pads, not brick walls. You physically perceive the reality you are tuned into. The timid see impenetrable walls. The bold see unlocked doors. You have made the leap. Therefore, your reality will be flooded with open doors. When the next gateway materializes, which will happen much faster than you anticipate, likely wearing a disguise you never expected, you will instantly recognize it. You will feel that familiar draft of the portal opening. You will feel the seductive tug of your comfort zone battling the intense gravity of the void. But this time, you will possess the ultimate cheat code. You will already know that clarity only exists on the far side of the jump. You will remember that ironclad confidence is the reward for leaping, not the requirement. You will know that true readiness only strikes mid-air, never before, and you won't hesitate, you will step straight through. Why? Because that is simply your nature now. That is the dominant programming of the entity breathing on this side of the threshold. Before we conclude, we must address the core architecture of these universal windows. Why do they unlock at such specific intervals? What dictates their cosmic timer? How does your mind command the quantum field to forge them? Let's be absolutely clear. These portals are never random. They are not cosmic accidents, nor are they evenly spaced out on a predictable calendar. They burst open at highly synchronized moments dictated entirely by your internal climate. They are triggered by the silent, microscopic preparations occurring deep within your cellular structure. They are born from the new frequencies you've been agonizingly tuning into, forged by the heavy lifting you accomplished on the days you felt completely defeated. This distinction is crucial. It proves that the portal you just conquered wasn't a stroke of dumb luck or a random planetary alignment. It is the direct, mathematical result of every single tear, frustration, and microscopic victory you accumulated during your approach phase. The doorway unlocked strictly because your energetic grid demanded it. You weren't ready in the sense of being fearless or perfectly planned. You were mathematically ready because you had completed the invisible, molecular groundwork required to trigger the phase shift. Your internal temperature finally hit the critical threshold. You engineered this exact gateway. You didn't do it with a vision board or a specific meditation technique. You forged it through the brutal, beautiful accumulation of your own evolution, simply surviving, staying hyper-aware, and refusing to quit even when your progress was messy, inconsistent, and seemingly invisible was the exact labor required. Even on the darkest days when you felt permanently paralyzed, that silent, grinding effort was actively building the door you just walked through. Your upcoming portal will be constructed using the exact same mechanics. It will be forged by the daily accumulation of who you are choosing to be on this side of the boundary, by authentically embodying your upgraded architecture, by relentlessly operating from your newly established frequency, and permanently abandoning the exhausting cognitive dissonance of your past. The foundation for your next gateway is already being poured. But here is the critical part. There is zero need to sprint toward it or panic about missing the deadline. The subconscious, quantum groundwork for your next phase transition is actively humming in the background, far below your conscious radar. Your current assignment is not to hunt down the next doorway. Your only job right now is to firmly occupy the territory you just conquered. Allow the curing process to finalize. Let the freshly poured concrete dry. Take that massive reservoir of recovered energy, the power you stopped bleeding to your old, fake identity, and aggressively direct it toward your true purpose. Allow the newly reversed momentum to propel you forward, instead of constantly fighting the tide. Your mission right now is to simply exist within this elevated vibration, fully embodying the entity that successfully made the jump. You leaped. You survived. You have officially arrived. Now, let's break down the integration protocol. This is the make-or-break phase that dictates whether your metamorphosis becomes permanent or if the old ghost software reboots while your guard is down. Integration isn't a cinematic climax. It isn't a one-time spiritual exercise. It is the gritty, mundane, daily discipline of commanding your life from your upgraded operating system instead of instinctively grabbing for your outdated coping mechanisms. To permanently lock in this transition, there are 3 non-negotiable integration practices you must execute in the immediate aftermath of your leap. Practice 1. Active observation. This means casually but consistently acknowledging the newly emerged differences in your daily routine. Do not force this or obsessively catalog every microscopic change. Simply maintain a relaxed vigilance over your reality. Notice the sudden spikes in stamina that weren't there yesterday. Observe how previously paralyzing decisions suddenly feel completely effortless. Acknowledge the profound sensation of the current finally pushing with you instead of against you. Pay attention when you catch yourself reacting from your new narrative rather than your trauma. Let these data points sink deeply into your nervous system. This isn't about brainwashing yourself. It's about feeding hard evidence back into your quantum field, boldly declaring, "This timeline is real. This is our new permanent baseline." Practice 2. The recalibration. Let's be brutally realistic. You are going to slip. You have officially crossed the line. The wave function has collapsed, and the phase shift is a fact. But when you hit a wall of exhaustion, extreme stress, or severe challenge, you will instinctively slide backward. The obsolete programming will attempt a hostile takeover. When this happens, absolutely do not panic. Do not view this as proof of a failed crossing or berate yourself for being weak. Instead, execute a gentle, drama-free pivot. Acknowledge the slip, drop the judgment, and consciously steer back to the upgraded frequency. Don't fight the old pattern with rage. Simply choose the new timeline again. Recollapse the wave function in that specific micro-moment. You will have to execute this pivot many times. This is not failure. This is the literal mechanism of stabilization. These are those erratic thermal hiccups smoothing themselves out after a massive state change. Every single time you consciously pivot back, the old ghost code loses a fraction of its power, and your new structural integrity hardens like steel. Practice 3. Authentic projection. Eventually, a tipping point will occur. The internal pivots will happen on autopilot, and your upgraded reality will solidify. At this stage, your new identity demands external release. The new you must actively collide with the physical world. Your upgraded frequency must begin dictating your career moves, your relationship boundaries, and your daily actions. This is not a desperate cry for validation, a forced announcement, or a theatrical performance for your peers. It is simply the organic, unavoidable radiation of a sovereign mind that has shattered a quantum threshold and claimed its rightful terrain. Consider how a superconductor, once it hits its absolute freezing point, automatically transmits power with zero friction. It doesn't have to try. It isn't acting out a role or attempting to perform. It operates that way simply because its fundamental nature has permanently altered. That is its new, undeniable physical state. In the exact same way, you will effortlessly project your upgraded matrix. It won't be a flawless, instantaneous perfection. You still have to navigate the messy reality of being a growing human, but it will happen organically, purely because this is your true identity now. The leap is finished. The wave function is shattered. The phase shift is absolute. As you organically radiate this truth, and your fresh frequency dictates your career, your inner circle, and your daily habits, the physical environment will literally restructure itself to match you. It won't be a sudden cinematic explosion, but a steady, magnetic pull toward absolute alignment. You will be drawn directly into the existence that mirrors your authentic soul, the exact timeline that was waiting patiently beyond the portal. That is true integration. This is the exact mechanism that cements your evolution. This is how the door that just sealed shut at your back morphs into the concrete foundation for your next empire. But we must address one final, crucial reality regarding this exact second, this profound transition, and the gateway you just successfully cleared. You are going to share this triumph with someone else. You won't necessarily use spoken words, and you probably won't use complex quantum terminology or lecture them about phase transitions. Instead, your confession will be broadcast entirely through your posture in reality. It will echo in the heavy gravity of your presence, the undeniable authority of your new decisions, and the sovereign way you command your upgraded frequency. Someone in your orbit is paying close attention. Someone who is currently paralyzed at the edge of their own precipice, sensing their personal portal unlocking. They are trapped in their own agonizing approach phase, completely lacking the vocabulary to explain their dread. They are feeling that identical static in their chest, that terrifying buildup of pressure, and that eerie silence that precedes a massive leap. When they witness your transformation, when they collide with the version of you that successfully made it to the other side, a version utterly free from the toxic friction of a fake identity, a deep primal part of their soul will instantly recognize the signal. Their subconscious will intercept your frequency. Bypassing all logical doubt, they will instantly realize that the jump is survivable, that the portal is not an illusion, and that the glorious reality waiting on the other side is absolutely worth the paralyzing terror of the crossing. You become their undeniable proof, not by preaching, not by giving unsolicited advice, and certainly not by performing a fake guru persona. You liberate them simply by existing unapologetically on the winning side of the boundary, by operating purely on the wavelength of a gate crosser, by acting as the breathing, walking evidence that the upgraded timeline is legitimate. This is the silent duty of every soul that conquers a precipice. You essentially transform into a beacon for another. You aren't their actual doorway. Every human must walk their own bespoke path, face a portal custom-built for their unique trauma, and obey their own quantum clock. But you provide the hard evidence that the threshold isn't a myth. You become the energetic signature screaming, "I survived the fire, and the prize is real." You are now that lifeline for another human being, simply because you showed up and stepped over the line. The entity you embody today is the exact warrior that has been desperately fighting to break the surface for years. Through every failed attempt, every panicked retreat, and every agonizing micro-step of your invisible preparation, this exact identity was your ultimate North Star. This specific frequency was always the final target. This timeline was inevitably yours, and now you have claimed it. The doorway is securely locked behind you. The portal has sealed, but it didn't shut because you cowered it out. It slammed shut because you boldly walked right through it. You showed up while the connection was live. Your deep intuition caught the transmission and fired back. You stared down the paralyzing void, ignored the seductive whispers of your toxic comfort zone, and vaulted over the edge. You leaped because, at your core, you are a conqueror of thresholds. You always have been. If these words caught you in a pocket of deep stillness, bookmark this frequency. Return to it right before you fall asleep, in the dead silence before dawn, or whenever you feel a new portal looming. And if you recognize someone in your circle who is currently paralyzed at their own precipice, forward this transmission to them. Don't offer it as casual advice. Hand it to them as a lifeline. Sharing this encoded frequency with a mind that is ready to awaken isn't just sending a YouTube link. You are physically extending a bridge across their personal void. Your victory guarantees theirs. That is the mechanics of collective evolution. This concludes our current transmission. However, do not treat this as a finale. Quantum leaps do not signify the end of the road. They mark the true starting line. This isn't a conclusion. It is your official arrival. This is the exact moment the guide retreats, allowing the newly evolved mind to plant its feet and claim the territory it just conquered. You arrived at this broadcast hovering on a precipice. Perhaps you consciously understood the gravity of the moment, or maybe you only felt a nameless, magnetic pull you couldn't articulate. Regardless, the precipice was absolute reality. The gateway was unsealed, and you made the jump. You now grasped the true anatomy of this portal. It was a literal phase shift in your core awareness. It was the absolute climax where your invisible background labor finalized, the boundary materialized, and the leap became mathematically possible. You executed a quantum tunneling maneuver, striking at the exact microsecond of peak probability to bypass a wall that previously felt like indestructible concrete, separating your obsolete life from your upgraded destiny. You seized the kairos, opening the destined, hypercharged fraction of a second. You drew the bowstring, and you finally released the arrow. You now possess total clarity regarding both dimensions. You can honor the expiring reality, recognizing it was the exact, necessary vehicle that hauled you to the edge before its contract expired. And you recognize the new reality, the frequency you painstakingly forged, the timeline completely synchronized with your authentic soul. This isn't a fluffy daydream. It is a tangible quantum coordinate that was always hovering in the background, which you now physically occupy. You finally understand why today. It happened because the internal climate of your soul hit absolute zero, because the microscopic groundwork was flawlessly executed, because the energetic grid aligned perfectly for your escape. The probability hit its zenith, and the door swung wide, and you know exactly what transforms now. The exhausting psychological tax is canceled. Your stolen vitality rushes back. The universal current flips to your advantage. Piercing clarity replaces blind faith. Your self-image officially upgrades from a desperate seeker to an anchored victor. Any lingering doubt about whether you actually evolved is annihilated by the raw fact of the leap itself. You commanded the observation, shattered the superposition, and triggered an irreversible biological metamorphosis. You crossed the line. You are here. The curing process has officially begun. Your stabilization is actively locking in. The upgraded architecture is hardening. When the ghosts of your old habits inevitably flare up as decaying residue, you know exactly how to calmly pivot back to your new baseline. Your authentic self is beginning to radiate, and the physical universe is already restructuring itself to accommodate your upgrade. The momentum is permanently at your back. And remember, somewhere out there, someone is quietly observing you. Someone who is currently stumbling through the agonizing approach to their own personal gateway. They are feeling that same maddening static, that same building pressure. When they look at you, they won't be saved by your lectures or your announcements. They will be saved by witnessing your raw frequency. They will observe how you navigate reality on this side of the boundary. A dormant code within them will instantly recognize your signal. Their own portal will suddenly unlock, and they will find the courage to jump simply because you jumped first, because you held the line when the door opened, because you are the living embodiment of a gate crosser. The portal is locked behind you. The window has vanished. You are anchored in the new timeline, and mathematical regression is impossible. That is the ruthless, beautiful physics of a quantum threshold. You've been silently executing this transition for far longer than you ever realized through all those agonizing, invisible days when you thought you were completely stuck. Yet everything was shifting beneath the surface. Your grind was real. Your approach was real. Your leap was undeniable. And you are undeniably real. This upgraded iteration of you, broadcasting this elevated frequency, standing victorious on the far side of the precipice, you are entirely solid. Welcome to your new reality. The universe is already prepping your next gateway. And when that next Kairos moment strikes, whatever disguise it wears, you won't hesitate. You will instantly recognize the draft, and you will step straight through, because that is your fundamental nature now. It is the Titan you were always destined to become, and the Titan you officially are today. Outro. There is another broadcast that dives even deeper into this rabbit hole, exposing the hidden, unmapped frequency constantly running beneath your physical biology. It decodes the exact signal that has been secretly puppeteering your entire existence from far below your conscious radar. If the energy of this transmission is still vibrating through your nervous system, that next guide is already queued up and waiting for you.